Welcome back, Wargamers. You're watching Cobb Valley Wargaming Guild TV, and I'm your host, Josh P. In this video, we're jumping into the fires of war with a look at Armageddon Crusade rules for Warhammer 40k 10th edition. These rules add layers of strategy and chaos to your campaign, introducing a player versus environment mechanic and a common enemy in the form of Unbound Adversaries that land on your battlefield and attack both players. Want to learn about it? Let's roll. Preparing this campaign is much like all the other Crusades in 10th edition. To run this properly, you'll need a campaign master. This person will organize the alliances and record decisions being made. Each alliance will also need its own war master or a team leader who will communicate with the campaign master during the campaign. As far as campaign length, we recommend at least an 8-week campaign to get the full experience. Although you could cram this in a weekend or have it draw out over several months. It's up to you. The Armageddon campaign is a team-based narrative experience. Players are split into 3 teams or alliances. The campaign itself is divided into 4 phases. In each phase, your alliance pursues a specific narrative goal. Success towards that goal is measured in strategic points, which every player on your team will contribute to. At the end of each phase, the alliance with the most strategic points succeeds their goal for that phase and earns a campaign point. Those teams that aren't successful though, or in the case of a tie, need not worry, as the campaign has a fault tree to determine what your next phase's goal will be depending on the outcome. And the victor for the whole campaign isn't decided until the very end, so it's a battle to the finish. Let's elaborate a little bit more on narrative goals. So each phase of the campaign, each alliance will have their own narrative goal. Progress is measured in strategic points, which each player can earn by winning games or achieving agendas, etc. At the end of each phase, the alliance with the most strategic points will be successful in that goal. They'll gain 1 campaign point and move along the success tree. If there's a tie in strategic points, or you're the team that didn't earn the most points, you move along the failure tree. Strategic points are then reset to 0 at the beginning of the next phase, and the campaign moves on. What's great about the Armageddon campaign is winning isn't just about getting the early lead. The ultimate victor is decided in the 4th and final phase, where the alliance with the highest strategic points in that phase will win the campaign. If there's a tie, we look at the total campaign points earned throughout all phases, and if there's still a tie, there's no winner. Armageddon brings plenty of unique buffs. For example, epic heroes can become mighty champions. When you add one to your roster, the campaign master assigns them a custom Crusade ability. This increases their Crusade points by 1, but makes them a powerhouse on the field. Another unique thing that Armageddon introduces is tactical agendas, which will take the spot of one of your 2 agendas that you select during each Crusade game. At the start of your command phase, you will generate a tactical agenda by rolling a d6 and consulting a table. That agenda will be active until you achieve it. At the end of your turn, if you scored any XP as described on the agenda, it's achieved. Or you can abandon it and generate a new one in your subsequent command phase. And once per battle, you can spend 1 CP to generate a new tactical agenda during your command phase. Aside from using tactical agendas, playing Armageddon Crusade games has a normal setup, except for when you come to determine the mission. Now you can either pick, or you could let fate choose. Flip a coin, roll a d6, whatever. Table A is all symmetric battles. Table B is asymmetric battles. Like all Crusade books, Armageddon has its own unique battle traits and relics. There's a whole battle trait section for Psyker units in Armageddon. Some battle traits and some Crusade relics improve your attacks against your Unbound Adversaries, and many battle traits have modifiers for whether or not your unit has warp counters, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Now we'll get into the player versus environment mechanics that Armageddon brings, starting with describing Hellscapes. Hellscapes represent the amount of warp energies that surround you during your battles. Each mission will specify what hellscape you're playing on, or you can consult the book to randomly determine a hellscape. Many of the hellscapes have one or more unique actions that your forces can attempt during the battle. Each action will state which units can perform it, when it's completed, etc. and many of the Hellscapes will have rules to tell you to give warp counters to one or more units. Now, you can use anything to represent these warp counters, but for each warp counter you give a unit, that unit will keep that counter until the end of the battle, that unit's destroyed, or another rule tells you to remove that warp counter from the unit. Adding even more of a player versus environment mechanic to your Armageddon games is what's called Anomalies, and these will be generated based on warp events. Each mission in the Crusade book will detail the potency of the warp events you'll experience during that mission, and this will give you a scale and intensity, and depending on the scale and intensity of the warp events, you'll generate anomalies described on the warp events matrix found in the book. Whether you're generating anomalies at the start of battle round or at the start of your turn, you'll do so before any other rules are resolved. When you generate anomalies, for each anomaly you generate, you roll 3d6 and use the corresponding result. Consult the table in the book. Results 3 through 9 are general nerfs to your units, whereas results 12 and higher are buffs to your units. Armageddon adds additional literal chaos into your Crusade games in the form of Unbound Adversaries, a demonic enemy hostile to both players' Crusade armies, representing the Coronate legions under Angron's control at Armageddon. Many of the campaign and mission rules in the Crusade book state whether or not you should use Unbound Adversaries, and if you do, it will tell you which units you should set up and when. You can use any model to represent these units, and if you don't have suitable models, you don't have to use them, though the experience of the missions will be different without them. These enemies will act in their own turn according to the rules of the Crusade book. Unbound Adversary units are not part of any Crusade army, and they're treated as enemy units by each player. And they themselves treat all other units that are not Unbound Adversaries as enemy units. Unbound Adversaries do not take leadership or battle shock tests. They do not perform actions or gain warp counters, and they do not control objective markers. But they do have OC. A player will control an objective marker at the end of any phase or turn if their level of control over it is greater than the opponent's and that of any Unbound Adversaries units that are with range of that objective marker. If one or more players have a level of control greater than 0 over an objective marker, but do not have a level of control greater than the total of Unbound Adversaries units' level control on that objective marker, it is considered contested. So you'll have to defeat them in order to take that objective marker. There is an Unbound Adversaries turn at the start of each battle round, which happens after the, quote, start of battle round, unquote, rules are resolved, but before the first player's turn. The Unbound Adversaries turn consists of movement, shooting, charge, and fight phase. Where a rule refers to such a phase, to an opponent's movement, shooting, charge, or fight phase, or to an opponent's turn, it also applies to a corresponding Unbound Adversaries phase or turn. For example, if you wanted to use the Fire Overwatch stratagem, you could fire Overwatch in the Unbound Adversaries movement or charge phase. If at any point during these rules there is more than one way to resolve them, for example, there's 2 enemy units equal distance to the Unbound Adversaries unit, the player whose Crusade army has a higher total warp counters gets to decide for the rest of the phase what the Unbound Adversaries do. If there's a tie, players roll off, and the winner decides. Starting with the movement phase, the Unbound Adversaries that is not within engagement range will make a normal move as follows. Must end that move as close as possible to the closest enemy unit, and each model must move as close as possible to that enemy unit. In the shooting phase, each Unbound Adversaries that is eligible to do so will shoot, and when it does, it will target with a ranged attack the closest eligible target. In the Unbound Adversaries charge phase, each Unbound Adversary unit that is within 12 inches of one or more enemy units and is not within engagement range will declare a charge to the closest enemy unit. When resolving that charge, the unit must end as close as possible to that closest enemy unit, and each model in that unit must move as close as possible to that enemy unit. In the Unbound Adversaries fight phase, each Unbound Adversary unit that is eligible to fight will do so. It will only make a consolidation move if it can end that move within engagement range of one or more enemy units, and units that are wholly eligible to fight in the Unbound Adversaries fight phase are not eligible to fight in any other fight phase. For more information about Unbound Adversaries and their datasheets, consult the Armageddon Crusade book. That's the breakdown for the Armageddon Crusade. For more detailed rules and to join our community, you can check us out at Caw Valley Wargaming Guild on Patreon or scan the QR code on your screen. Grab your dice and have fun playing Armageddon Crusade. I'll see you on the tabletop.